So just an introduction of Heather. I'll get back to the beginning.
Yeah.
She is a fantastic asset to the community. She's also my neighbor, so I have to say really nice things. So she'll throw rocks at me when I drive by her house. She's fantastic. She works really super hard up at our state park, and a local from the area, and we truly value what you do for us up there. And take it away. I'll stand over here in case your clicker doesn't work, and I'll go forward on your slides.
I appreciate that. Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah. I'm Heather Reith. I am the National Resources Program Manager for what we call the Central Valley District of State Parks. We have 14 parks in our district. We're acquiring one more park called Dos Rios, so we'll have 15 parks. But of course, the whole reason we're here is for Calaveras big trees in our community. To give you a little background of me is I grew up here. Being in this building, it just brings back so many memories because I had preschool in this building. I cherish this building. So I've been here for 50 years. As this month, I've been with State Parks for 20 years. And I know, it's crazy, I didn't realize that. But yeah, so I'm very embedded in the community. I love our area. And when I started with State Parks, and started moving through the ranks and realized that we needed to do more than just manage the forest for the park, but we also needed to manage the boundaries of the park for the community and also for the park, because we're afraid of fire coming into the park from the community, as well as you're all afraid of fire coming from the park into the community. So we have been trying to do a lot of efforts there. But today what I'm going to talk about is what we've done in the past. And I think I'm doing this because a lot of people are new to the area. They don't know that we have a long history of forest management, including prescribed fire. And then I want to bring up what we're doing presently. So let's see if this is going to work. Nope. It's not.
There we go.
You're wonderful. Thank you. Forgot Mike's got the control. So the mission statement of state parks is to provide for the health, inspiration, and education of the people of California by helping to preserve the state's extraordinary biological diversity, protecting its most valued natural and cultural resources, and creating opportunities for high-quality recreation. Then, we kind of narrow this down a little more in what we call our Natural Resource Division, and we have some guiding management concepts and principles. And so we have natural resources will be managed to preserve the composite whole of physical and biological processes, features, and native plant and animal communities. And then whenever possible, natural processes will be relied upon to maintain native plant and animal species and to influence natural fluctuations and populations of these species. And then just this morning, I went into our prescribed fire policy, and it's the policy of the department to restore fire to its proper role in native ecosystems in accordance with the broader change to restore and perpetuate natural ecological processes in the natural environments of the state park system. So I just want to let you know that we have different guiding principles than our sister agencies, CalFire, Forest Service, even our local agencies like CCWD Land. So, when we're talking about ecological processes, we may not be using mastication as people have asked us to do, but it's not something that's out of our toolbox. We will have areas that are proper for it, but not everywhere in the park. So this is just a map of the park, so you can see where, all the boundary of the park. And right in here is Blue Lake Springs. And then Big Trees Village is right here, and then you have Love Creek and the Smith property all in here. And then the Stanislaus River, runs through the park, so the park's on the Calaveras and Tuolumne sides. So these folks here, why don't I have them up? These are forefathers and mother of prescribed burning at Calaveras Big Trees. So Gary, what is his last name? Gary Wolford. He was a park ranger in 1977, and you can see things have definitely changed. He's in just some regular clothes and doing a broadcast burn. Right here is Harold Biswell, who is the father of prescribed burning. And then we have Mrs. Bradley, Adrian Bradley, who had a definite huge role in the protection of the South Grove. And, they planted a grove themselves, so we have the Memorial Bradley Grove in the park. And then my predecessor, Wayne Harrison, who was instrumental in continuing the prescribed burning efforts at Big Trees and until he retired in the early 2000s. Okay, so our first prescribed burn at Big Trees was November 18th, 1975. This started off in the South Grove, and they continued to burn until about 1981, where they had burned the entire perimeter of, or not the perimeter, the entire area of the South Grove. This map here shows a fire history of, so here's all the burning they did in that time period in the South Grove. And this goes from 1981 all the way to 1995 of all the different areas that have had prescribed fire in the past. Then this next map goes from 1999 to 2000. So this map really is showing some plots that they had identified, and not every one of them were burnt, but I can say that this area was burnt. That's our Skull Creek area, and we burnt in this area also. Then next we have, this is where I am more involved in this now, is this area here. When I first started in 2003, we started doing forest management there. We did a large prescribed burn in this whole area, and we also hit this little tip. What's that like? Oh, my thing turned around somehow. So imagine that it's the right way. And it's rotated the right way. And so this is a little area this whole area is on the perimeter of the South Grove, and we call it the Big Trees National Forest. And it was acquired by the National Forest Service, and it is an old growth sugar pine forest. So we acquired some funding so we could do some forest management and including prescribed burning in that area. Next is the North Grove. And so that was my first project as a project manager. We received funding through the Sierra Nevada Conservancy to do restoration efforts in the North Grove. That did not include prescribed burning at the time. It was just fuels reduction and pile burning. So this is really when I really took over, and I thought about what we really need to do to protect the North Grove.
A little lower.
A little lower? Okay. Sorry, I keep going up and down. So what do we need to do to protect the North Grove, and what we need to do to protect the community? So I created this map in hopes that we could find funding so we could continue our restoration efforts. And then next, we got more funding for that Big Trees National Forest area. Next. And then finally, the California Conservation Corps had a program with their veterans where they were putting veterans back to work. And so I delved into that. We got some CCC crews. We have them do a 300-foot, what we call a shaded field break. And yes, it's a little more of leaving more trees, a little more shrub than what you would see like on SBI land or other lands. And we also did the same efforts at Blue Lake Springs area. And then we did not have enough funding to complete this. So we also acquired some funding through our department's grant program and received that to strengthen our work in the North Grove. Another pot of money we got is a 400-acre forest restoration project with piles. And so we're continuing to work on that. We still have lots of piles to burn there. We also received another grant funding from Sierra Nevada Conservancy to manage this area. This is Big Trees Village. And so we were connecting this shaded field break that we did with our North Grove forest restoration and did this, what we call the Big Tree Creek Forest Restoration Project. So that's back to that map. So you'll see that we've worked here, we've done a little bit on the boundary here at that point. And then at this stage, we brought in another gentleman who, his name is Ben Jacobs. He's a fire ecologist and he's our burn boss who has worked for the National Park Service and U.S. Forest Service doing prescribed burning in giant sequoia forest for over 20 years. So he comes in and he says, you guys have this grant, Giant Sequoia Forest Resilience Grant, and you're doing it on ridge tops, but we really need to protect the park's infrastructure and the giant sequoias. So we move this around and it ends up being pretty similar to what I was thinking too. So you can change it to the next. Okay, you can go next. So we're going to go into the present. We're going to go into the present. Yeah. I don't know why that's. So currently, with all the grant funding that we have had, we have burnt all of these areas here. We've done prescribed fire in all of these areas. This year, we're going to be doing what we call the maintenance unit, the West Moran unit, and possibly our East Moran unit. And then in a couple years, we're going to come back, and it'll be about 7 years, and we're going to do a re-entry into that area. This is just a wider view of, this is the North Grove, this is the internal portion of the North Grove, and this is the outer skirts that we have already done prescribed burning. And this year we will be preparing to do prescribed burning in the fall in the North Grove. So then the governor's Wildfire and Forest Resilience Program came into play for state parks. That was a big pot of money so that way we could actually do work without having to find grants to do this work. So now we've got some funding and we're calling it our 5-year plan. And so we have all of these units marked out so the pink is 2002, and we are behind, and 2023 we have units, 2024. So we're continuing our plot preparation, we're reducing fuels, we'll be doing prescribed fire in those areas. And so that was the Calaveras side of the park. And then the Tuolumne side of the park, these are the other units we have. Oops. we have designated. However, this right here has changed quite a bit. So when our original plan was that we were going to do fuel thinning, pile burning, and then we were going to follow up with prescribed burning. Fast forward to the Castle Fire, the Canopy Complex Fire, all those fires that took out 20% of giant sequoias. We realized we don't have time. We don't have time to do all of this work that would take us another 10 years to get to that point. We need to prep this unit. We fast forward? Yep. Fast forward. I'm on a VCR. So we are prepping the whole of the 1,300 acre South Road unit for a prescribed burn. What this is entailing is we have lots of dead snags all around the perimeter that we've had to remove. We're working on a biomass contract to get that all removed. All of our crews are out there. They're removing fuel away from the giant sequoias. They're removing fuel away from our large old growth sugar pines and ponderosa pines. We've worked with U.S. Forest Service. We're now in an agreement with U.S. Forest Service that when we're ready to prescribe burn, we can call them up and they can be there. We're working with our partners, CalFire, who are, they're instrumental in us doing this work together. And we're working with National Park Service. So we're getting an agreement with them so we can use their drone program, who will come in and help us do the ignition efforts in there. So once again, this is big trees, and our goal is to restore and maintain robust giant sequoia groves and a healthy forest. And to let you know, why am I saying all this? I just want to let you know we're really doing our efforts to protect that park from catastrophic fire and to protect the public and our community from catastrophic fire from coming into the park. So are we doing questions?
Yes. Yes.
If I have time, okay, I have time for questions, so.
Question? Yeah, just wondering, it's not on.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Give that a
there we
shot.
go. Thank you. I know that you had planned on burning the 1,300 acres last season. Excuse me.
Yes.
I know that you had planned on burning the 1,300 acres, and you were right up to the, to the point where you're gonna burn it and you had to back off. So I know you're gonna try it again. And what if you never find another window for that, for that area? Because the windows seem to be shorter and shorter for prescribed burns. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, that will be something that we're going to have to revisit. If it comes to where we don't get those windows, then we will have to revisit, and we will have to probably take that longer path of getting that area restored.
Excuse me. Counter question.
Yeah.
Okay, the longer path, if it's 10 years of no windows, what kind of path is that?
Well, we're not going to wait 10 years.
What's the alternative?
So the alternative is what I described, where we would come in, do some contracts, we'd have to reduce fuels in there, create piles, pile burn, and then we'd have to come in and do a prescribed burn. So we're just, we're all hoping for that opportunity, and we're all pretty much getting in line so this fall we can do this work.
Excellent. Any other questions for Heather before we move on to the next presenter? Heather, you're going to stick around for a little bit? Oh.
Well, I'll use my teacher voice.
Yeah, and then the other thing that is involved with this kind of cleanup is it has to be maintained.
Yes.
You have to come back and do it again and again at appropriate intervals. So I just wanted to mention that it's not a one and done type of thing.
You're very right, Vita. So one thing is, you saw those history maps of our prescribed burning, and you're thinking, well, they did all these efforts. Shouldn't that forest be really healthy and we don't need to do anything? Well, because of the funding issues, folks weren't able to go back every 7 to 10 years to go burn. So we're hoping that in the future that we can have, ongoing funding so that way we can continue and make sure that we're going in at those intervals and continuing those prescribed fire efforts to continue forward towards a healthy forest. So I lost the thought, never mind. It might come back to me.
Yeah, they're telling them about you're training your own people to work on this, doing the fire prescribed burning.
No, we've always had our own people doing
If they're
prescribed
going
fire.
to all the
So-
classes.
Oh, yeah, so we invest a lot of money on our permanent and our seasonal staff. So we just hired a whole bunch of new seasonal staff, and the first month is basic fire, chainsaw training, and then we, dependent on in the program, who's doing what, we're continuing all of their fire education. We train them on every other Thursday. They do a full day of training. We invest in them because, the department, we pride ourselves in that we're prescribed fire managers, but we also need to learn suppression. Not always is CalFire going to be right there where, hey, we had a little escape. Are they going to be there? No, we need to know how to control and be suppression, maybe not specialists, but we learn those suppression efforts and we make it, we do every effort we can to be in the game with CalFire.
Hey, thanks a lot, Heather. We're gonna go ahead and move through the agenda now. Let's give a round of applause to Heather.